Good afternoon, Dadas all over Kenya. Thank you very much for watching the Dadas show. Every Sunday at 4 p.m. We are honored, we appreciate you, we don't take it for granted. Today we want to talk about a rather sensitive issue. I normally like to warn you when we are doing sensitive stuff. We want to talk about sexual harassment, especially in the workplace. It's a big subject. I don't even want to begin breaking it down because I have some two ladies here, Sofia and Judy, who are both lawyers and have been through the experience. So there is nobody better to talk about this matter. So first of all, introduce yourselves. I normally ask people to do this, by the way. I ask them to introduce themselves so that I don't bungle it up, because you could be Dr. Sofia.
Oh, I wish. But God willing, God willing. My name is Sofia Rajab Leteipan. I'm a lawyer in private practice. I'm a feminist lawyer, so I work a lot on issues to do with human rights, women's rights, including violence against women. And sexual harassment in the workplace is one of the forms of gender-based violence against women. So that is what I focus on in my career, and that's what I put a lot of my time on.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, and I'm Judy Koech, Oyamo. I am a unionist. I'm a union representative at an affiliate group of KOTU. I work a lot with gender issues in the workplace while being the sole female representative, legal representative of the union. Okay. Yes. So I tend to also get to deal with so many complaints on sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is who I am. I am an advocate as well. Sofia is my colleague. Yes. And unfortunately, a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I want to start by definitions. First of all, we've never done two ladies sharing their personal experiences. You are a first, so congratulations. Oh, wow. You guys are Powerpuff Girls, by the way. You're already frightening me, especially with your big language, you know. But really, what is sexual harassment? What does that look like? What we talk about it. He sexually harassed me. You know, we make fun of it as women, or she sexually harassed me, and sometimes we use it in our dinner conversations and laugh about it. Right. But what is it, Sofia?
I'll let Judy give the very technical legal definition of sexual harassment. But quite simply, it's inappropriate sexual behavior in the context of the workplace. So it could take many forms. It could be physical. It could be digital, like somebody sends you pornographic material. It could be something that somebody says that is inappropriate, like asking you about your sexual experiences that are personal and should not be the subject of conversation in any workplace. And so it could take many forms, but it's essentially inappropriate behavior that has a sexual connotation to it, that is perpetrated also among people more often than not at a higher position than the person whom they're sexually harassing. More often than not, there's a power dynamic involved when it comes to sexual harassment in the workplace. However, it can also occur between colleagues that are peers, but more often than not, it happens between somebody at a higher position towards somebody who is at a lower position and taking advantage essentially of their vulnerabilities.
Judy, what is the? I thought that was very technical. I don't know how more technical it can be. But
what I will do, I'll just put it in a nutshell.
In a
nutshell, sexual harassment is an unwelcome sexual advance.
Unwelcome is very important here.
Yes, sexual advance.
Unwelcome is very important.
Okay.
Yes.
Judy, you share quite openly about the fact that you're a victim. What happened? What was your experience?
Okay, now it was during my holding over period. Now, holding over is the period the period where an advocate is not yet an advocate and is still not a student. You've completed your studies, you've gone through pupillage, now you're waiting admission. So now during the holding over position, we were two advocates, two holding over interns. Let's call them interns. Because we usually call them just holding over.
There's no word for it.
Yeah. So we were two interns, myself and a male colleague. Now our managing partner had told us that at the end of the holding over period, he will choose one person to become the advocate, and the other one, your contract will immediately cease.
So there was a bit of competition there.
Yes, now there has to be some competition. Now there was an unlikely advantage towards the male colleague because he would he would easily bond with the boss. They will go for drinks. They will have boys hangouts, out of town. But for me as a female colleague, I can't do that because I'm exposing myself to a certain kind of reputation, or even exposing myself to certain advances. Yeah. So of course, sexual harassment is it's at the top of your head when you think, what will happen if I go for a drink with my boss?
Of course.
If I'm a woman, I know that I might end up looking like I led him on. So I don't put myself in that situation. So now what that would mean that I work harder than him. I will come to office early. I will take up extra responsibilities, extra assignments, and just so that I can also have an advantage over him.
So you were going to do the work thing.
I was going to do the work,
Put
and
in
I
the
was
hours.
I
always.
know you.
She
You
was
were
ready
going
to put in the
You were
hours.
putting in the
I
hard
was
time
putting in the
because
hard time.
your colleague was putting in the boys' time.
Yes.
Okay.
So now one day I got to the office quite early, and I met, my boss was there. So I got into the office, and he came, he said hi, and he's like, it's good that you are here early because I wanted to go to court quite early today. We can live together. So I was quite excited because it was the first time ever that I was going to go to court with him, because he always preferred going with my male colleague. They will have a good time on their way.
Yes.
They were friends.
Yes.
So I got into the car. Now, the first red flag was that we went with his personal car. And he invited me to sit at the front. Normally, we had a driver and we had the office car that would take us to court. But now, okay, I decided not to read too much into it. It's also not good to be somebody who's always suspicious. Yeah, always
Paranoid.
you're
Described as
paranoid.
paranoid.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, fine. So I sat at the co-driver's seat, and we started heading towards court. And as we were going to court, he's friendly, sense for, you're always so quiet and timid. I hope I don't intimidate you. I like being friends with my employees. Yeah, I hope even he has told you the way. I'm not Missy Mnyama. Yeah, I don't bite. So I'm the sense, okay. So we talk about politics. He compliments my thoughts. He's the sense, I like how you think. I like how you're expressing yourself. So I'm like, okay, fine.
You're a little flattered.
Yes.
by that.
Yeah. Now, instead of going down Integrity Center and up to Milimani Law Courts, we continued down Haile Selassie Avenue, turned to Uhuru Highway, and I noticed that within a few minutes we were at Mombasa Road.
Wow.
And I asked him, okay. Now, disclaimer is, I had heard about the Mombasa Road getaways, yeah?
Really?
Then, yeah, I had heard about them.
There were rumors in
There
the
were
office.
rumors, yes, that
there were
the previous one who left was because when they got to that Mombasa Road getaway, wherever they were going, she refused to follow up with him, with his advances. Yes, she made it very clear that his advances were unwelcome.
Wait a minute. Now, Judy, this is in the morning.
Yes.
We're talking about what time in the morning?
Morning. It was 8:15 or so.
8:15 in the
Yes.
morning. Okay.
I don't think predators have like a specific work
I know.
schedule. It can but that's how shocking
this
it
is
is.
how
Yeah.
shocking it is.
Yeah.
For me, it's shocking because we're talking about a morning.
Right.
This is happening at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So it isn't that you are ill dressed, or you had had a drink with him, or you had given him any opportunity to be inappropriate. You're not even in the office.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
So I look at him and I'm like, I thought you were going to court at Miliman. He's like, no. I feel like I should get to know you better.
Wow. Okay.
So of course, you're those ones of, okay. So I smile at him and I'm like, okay. So where are we going? So he's like, just somewhere nice. Then a few minutes later, he put his hand up my skirt. And he continued going up. And that time, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Because if I'm to create a scene, I'm in his car. I don't know what will follow next. And for sure, if I'm to misbehave as per how they usually put it, the perpetrators usually put it, I won't have a job come tomorrow. So I decided, okay, let me just try be amicable, just a little bit friendly to this person as I think of a way out.
Okay, so he's driving, you know, I'm very
yes.
visual. So
She's
the man
trying to
is
imagine
He's
the
driving,
road.
driving and
The road.
he's
his hand is on your
yes,
after
he's
skirt.
here, yes.
At 8 o'clock in the morning. You know,
Yes.
this is ridiculous. Okay, continue.
So I look at my phone and I lie to him that somebody has been calling me quite a lot. Then I take my phone, I go straight to my, do you call them the ringtones?
Yeah.
I press the ringtone volume goes up and it rings. So I pretend, thanks to my drama classes back in high school, the phone call rings, the phone rings, I answer the call, I'm like, yes, yes, that's my father. I had to fake that my father was somewhere dying in Nairobi hospital, for him to turn the car back, drop me at Nairobi hospital. We got to the reception at Nairobi hospital. He wanted to come up to ICU with me. But yes, that's how I got out of it. I just told him, no, where are you going? Where are you? No. You can't come up with me. When people ask me, who are you?
Okay.
What will I say? But that was the last time I ever spoke to that man again.
So you never went back
I
to
never
work?
went back to work again.
Okay.
Because I didn't know what to do after that. Like, what do you do? I can't even tell my mother.
I know, but
How-
even how you go back to work, what do okay?
Right.
But I
Yeah,
imagine
how?
if she went back to work, she would say, you know, that the harassment would now continue.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, like it's so unfortunate that in our profession, in the legal profession, sexual harassment is so normalized. It's almost as if it's expected. It's expected to happen to you. It's a rite of passage. Like once you are a lawyer and you want to join the legal fraternity, and more so you want to be admitted into the bar, it will happen to you. It has happened, I would guess, to every woman
Okay.
in the legal profession.
Sophia, has this ever happened to you?
How I need a book, you know, that's how many times it's happened. It's happened to me so many times. It started when I was in law school, actually, the Kenya School of Law. And there was a specific lecturer who was extremely inappropriate. And this was known by so many people,
Yes.
and yet nothing was ever done about it. And, you know, they leave those positions and then they end up in the judiciary. So here you are, a few years ago, you were being sexually harassed as a student, and then now you are litigating before the same judicial officer. So it's a thing that never ends. I personally had my first sexual harassment experience when I was in the Kenya School of Law. Thereafter, even during pupillage, it was the same situation. I would never go to court without being sexually harassed by lawyers, by judges, by clerks. The courts are such a bed, a haven of sexual harassment. At least from my experience, I don't know if Judy shares the same experience, but even that sort of dissuaded me for a very long time from litigating, to be honest. So I went and did other things that required me not to have to go to court, because I can remember a time where I was before a judge. Now this is after I had been admitted to the bar, and I was going to argue a certificate of urgency. So essentially what that means is when you have to file a case and you have to be heard urgently because there's a serious issue going on with your client or so on. And my boss the boss who was sexually harassing me had sent me to a judge, and at the time we're arguing these applications in chamber, so in the judge's office. And by the time I had gotten to the judge's office, the order had already been made. So I was there as a gift to the judge, not
So
to
you'd
argue
been
a
set
case.
up-
I'd been set up.
You'd been set up by your boss?
Yes. Who had already had a conversation with this judge, and he had already been given the orders that he was seeking. They were ready. So he was sending me there as an offering, essentially, to the judge, who proceeded to hit on me and try to, put his hands on me.
Okay, how bad does it get? Do you get like hands up groping you, or does it get to rape, or have you ever had incidences where it gets to rape, or do girls just give in? Because as you said, it's a rite of passage, it's accepted, and I think many women will just be like, this is what I have to do, it's okay, I just close my eyes, be strong, and get on with it. It's part of the job. Judy?
As I said, it's an unwelcome sexual advance. What unwelcome means is that it's not even supposed to be there. You're not supposed to even be knocking at that door in the first place. The issue for consent, when it comes to consent, it's not asked for. You understand? Somebody will just come and sleep in. And you can't really say that this person should have said no at whatever time, because remember my situation where instead of saying no, I was thinking about the consequences of my no. This is not a place where I'll just hit him and get out of the car and run out and start screaming. No. This is a point where my believability is at test. This is a point where retaliation is also at the back of my mind.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I wanted,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so now when you talk about whether it actually got to the point of penetration, okay, in many cases, it doesn't get to that.
It doesn't.
In many cases, it doesn't get to that. However, there are those cases where it's done so many times that there is actually some escalation to the point where the victim just gives in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll find for example, the complaints we've gotten at LSK
Yeah.
is that there are usually these seminars that are usually held.
Yes.
Oh,
held.
yes.
Seminars and workshops, and they must all be in Mombasa
My
So-
hometown.
or Naivasha.
So now what the complaints that we've gotten, the few complaints that I have
Few?
received. No, for me I've received few. You've been practicing
Yeah.
gender
a bit longer.
for quite a
Yeah.
quite a while, yeah. But for me it's just recent when I noticed that I can't be the only victim and I have to
Yeah.
help people who are in the same situation as me. That's when I began my practice. And like her, who she had always been an activist. For me, I became an activist out of also my retaliation. So now the ones, most of the time, the complaints which we get is that my boss, when I was a pupil, used to do this, used to hit on me. Now, when it came to now absorbing me into the practice, one of the conditions was that I go out of town for a seminar with him. And the outcome of that seminar is what will determine whether or not I remain in employment. So now that is when you talk about rape, it's because
For me, it's a clear. The answer for me would be yes. Does it lead to rape sometimes? Absolutely. Because the thing that we always have to remember is that if consent is not asked and is not given,
freely given,
explicitly,
freely given.
without a threat of coercion, or the threat of retaliation, if you are willingly, as an adult, giving consent, then that's fine. But where you have been coerced, where you have been, duped into situations where you have no choice other than to give in, then that is sexual violence, plain and simple.
This is very disheartening. I think what is most disheartening is that this happens when you are very young.
Yeah.
You're very young. I mean,
Yeah.
the two
It's
of
vulnerabilities.
You
Yeah,
get.
yeah.
You're very young. You're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And at that point, you really cannot defend yourself. But you spoke to the question of believability. You see, your boss is much older than you, has got more clout than you, knows more people than you. So even when he were to shout and say, "Hey, this guy,"
Believability, oh gosh, I'm getting so emotional. Believability is a big issue when it comes to sexual harassment. Now, when we're defining sexual harassment, as I said, it happens in many forms. So it could be physical, it could be verbal. So it's very difficult to prove at the end of the day, because if there are no witnesses, like in this instance where Judy was alone in a car, it's not like we walk around with body cameras on us, because essentially that's what maybe we need to do now to be able to prove sexual harassment. Like really, it boils down to your word against mine. And where there are no physical scars, right? Where there are no text messages, right? It becomes very difficult to prove. And as you said, this person is, of course, older than you, has more clout, is more established in the profession, vis-a-vis you, who nobody knows, who is going to be believed. And believability becomes a thing that is an impediment even for survivors to come forward, because they always think to themselves, will I be believed? Will I be believed? Because all the time, many times, women come forward where we're told we have ulterior motives. Like there has to be a reason why you have accused somebody of sexual harassment. So it becomes very difficult to prove in and of itself if you don't have evidence maybe on your phone or emails or an eyewitness. And a lot of the times this happens in closed doors. They're taking opportunities where somebody will not see them and take advantage of that. So it becomes very difficult to prove.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I also wanted to talk about was the fact that a lot of these things happen in spaces where the person has got power over you, and therefore you must make a big choice.
Right.
You have to make a choice to leave your job, and maybe you cannot leave your job because maybe you have responsibility. So you have to think whether you want to leave your job.
Right.
I wanted us to think, why is Kenya such a patriarchal society? Why do men get away with literally anything?
Sophia, that's up to you.
Yeah. Because it seems like the legal profession is full of the big men.
Right. Powerful men.
Powerful men. I would like to say that I've worked in media. Lots of really powerful men.
Yeah.
If to jump from an intern to somebody, you have to have a godfather. We all know
that's
that.
what they call them.
Yes, you have to have. Today they are called sponsors. In my day, we call them a godfather. You needed a godfather.
Yeah.
The godfather spoke for you.
Right.
In closed doors in the boardroom, he would say a kind word about you. He would say, "Oh, Sophia is very hardworking." I wonder where you're hardworking at.
Yeah.
Sophia is a very hardworking girl. And immediately the boys in the boardroom know what that means. It means she's my person. And therefore you begin to get promoted. And it slowly by slowly, a lot of the women from my world, you've had to do a couple of things. You've had to do some things, some nasties, but because you have to. So the culture of patriarchy and women, how do we even begin to deal with that?
Oh, I'm just like, we need a come to Jesus moment as a country.
No, what I think the main issue with the legal profession is that the legal profession relies so much on a mentorship program, whereby now you have a mentor who's supposed to train you into the practice, to bring you into find the technical bit and also the morality bit. So you'll find a situation whereby you'll find that your female colleague has risen up faster than you because of it's called sleeping. Yeah.
They had a godfather.
Yeah, they had a
mentor.
godfather, So what you do as a man, you say, one day I'll be in that position. Maybe you won't speak it out, but in your subconscious, you've seen how your mentor has been acting, and you can't wait to get to that position as well.
Okay.
Now, when you get to that position, you start thinking, will you take over what your mentor did?
Okay.
Yeah? Or you will start afresh. But most of the time, it's usually because I try and imagine my position whereby my colleague, the male colleague, was such good friends with my boss and used to see him as a god. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Used to follow him all over, also dress and act like him. And I fear when I think that soon this guy will be in a position to be a pupil master himself.
Yes, he'll be a pupil master.
Yes.
Yes.
And if that is his mentor, then we are doomed.
Right.
We are doomed. So it starts from the mentorship program and also what we are exposed to at a very young age, the seminars, whereby there is nothing that regulates.
What happens in Vegas?
What happens, yes.
What happens in Vegas?
What happens in
But the
Vegas?
repercussions of Vegas come to
Right.
Nairobi, do they not?
Absolutely. And they are long-lasting repercussions. The thing about what drives patriarchy is because men benefit from being in positions of power. So power is a thing that you want to achieve at all times.
Okay.
And you see I would say a lot of men in power recognize the benefit of being in that powerful position. And therefore, even if they do know about a peer of theirs who is doing this, they won't call it out. Why? Because we are all benefiting from power. Therefore, it doesn't make sense for us in the long run to come out for what? For this young girl. Whereas here we are making big business deals, in corridors of courtrooms and boardrooms and all this. They can get away with that little habit. It's okay, they can get away with it.
Okay.
Because our bodies as women are dispensable in that way. And our experiences are completely diminished. So it's just like you'd get over it. And actually, it's so entrenched that we know who the perpetrators are.
I know.
We
Like
know
you
them.
said, like you
We
said,
all know them.
We
It's
even know
an
where they
open
take
secret.
people.
Yes.
We even know
Yes.
that they take them to Mombasa Road.
Indeed.
Because I knew that where I'm going.
I've heard about
Yes,
it.
I've
I've
heard
Unaenda
about it.
kichinjio.
Like, that's what it's called.
You are there
Yeah,
for
that's
being
what it's
changed. What
called.
has come?
That's what-
Yeah, you are being taken to the kichinjio,
Yes,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you even know the people. You even know where they do the things that they
Right.
do. You know where they take the people. But everybody, it's a dirty little secret.
It's a well kept open secret that we know exactly who they are.
Okay.
And they have gotten away with it for decades. So
Okay.
it's almost impossible to imagine that it would end with a generation of lawyers who have been perpetrators of sexual violence for decades.
Ladies, the stories of sexual harassment are really frightening. I think if you're like me, you're probably sitting at home shocked and afraid. We're going into a break. We'll be right back. Welcome, Dadas. If you watch the first half of the show, we've been speaking with Judy and Sofia about sexual harassment, and they've shared their personal experiences. I want to thank you, ladies, for coming on the show and sharing your personal experiences. I know how difficult this is, and both of you told me that the stigma associated with this is really, like, people will not talk about it. They'll never come on here and talk about sexual harassment. So I am so proud of you. Both of you are doing a lot in this area. What are you doing, Sofia?
I started a project called Dear Law, and I started this project last year. And it was 10 years of me being admitted to the bar. So it was my 10-year anniversary being admitted to the bar. And I was really reflecting on the last 10 years. And sexual harassment was one of those things, one of the things that I kept on thinking about a lot. How it affected me, how it affected the trajectory of my career, and other women who have gone through similar experiences. But for whatever reason, we've not been able to come out. So I had started this project. It's called Dear Law because we wanted to talk to the legal profession, hear from us as women, listen to our stories. And it's a multimedia project that is women-led, and we are trying to first and foremost get women to anonymously write letters, because as you said, there's a lot of stigma attached to it. So we were thinking, how can we be able to encourage women to tell their stories so that the next woman, the next young woman who is getting admitted into the bar understands what she's getting into, understands how she can protect herself, understands how she can get through it if she's gone through it. So I thought that it was very important for us to speak to the younger generation of women lawyers so that they don't have to go through what we went through when we were coming into the profession. Okay. So we started Dear Law letters, and we encourage, if you are a woman lawyer out there and you are listening to this message, please write your letter anonymously. You can go to our website, dear-law.com, and you can see how to write the guidelines for writing the letters. We're also going to be doing a Dear Law podcast where we're going to be acting out some of, and simulating really, some of the letters and the situations that women are talking about. So as a listener, you can actually be able to be in the car with Judy, to understand how her heart is beating so fast, to understand what she's really going through in those moments. So we hope to launch the podcast on the 3rd of February. So we're going to be having a Dear Law podcast so that we can continuously talk about this and encourage more women to come out. And there's a lot of stigma, but also the fear of retaliation when speaking about your sexual harassment experience. So that's why we're encouraging women to come and speak to us anonymously, and we will protect their identities and ensure that their stories are told.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So for me, I'm taking a little bit a different venture from hers, yes? What I notice is that what the law provides in handling social harassment is really not, number one, it's not enforceable, and it's quite stringent, yes? It's a very long process. It's a dirty process. You end up being tainted. If it's your employer ends up being tainted. If it's a corporation, it's just worse, yeah? So now I've been visiting different industries, talking to them about formulating a sexual harassment policy, which is already in the law. We are supposed, each company or every employer who employs more than 20 individuals in their premise, they're supposed to have a sexual harassment policy. But right now, if you are to even do a study to find out how many of them are abiding by that law, you find that it's very few, very, very few. So I work from company to company. Yes, company to company, industry to industry. I have been with the women surgeons. I've been with Koech as well. We've been talking to each and every company that gives us any audience so that they can listen to us and see the importance of formulating a sexual harassment policy. We help them in the drafting of their policy and also in its launching and just bringing to the employees' attentions of their rights. And some of them don't even know what sexual harassment is. So to actually explain to them that when you do this, it amounts to sexual harassment and these are the consequences. The policy brings up an internal mechanism to deal with, to address sexual harassment in the workplace. So from a HR level, you can place your complaint if it's a colleague or if it's one of the managers, let's say it's a big company. If it is not a big company, if it's a small company, there are also internal mechanisms that can be used and also external ones from the board, not really having to go to, having to go all the way till the courtrooms. Now, you look at their code of ethics, and when they're revising their code of ethics, we talk to them in pushing that a sexual harassment clause is put in, and also a mechanism to deal with sexual harassment in the workplace. So now it's a sensitization program, and we work with several other lawyers, on pro bono. We do believe that right now it's a point for, they said it's catalyzing the discussion. We are having this discussion now. We can't afford to have it later because right now it's too much. It's too much. Everyone is complaining about it. You find even our students in the universities are complaining. Yes. There are so many doctors who are complaining. Most of us women, we don't end up graduating because there's a certain consultant who frustrated us in our internship. So we end up not completing our course because of a certain, because of certain treatment. So sexual harassment goes hand in hand with also bullying. Because somebody can decide to bully you because of your gender. Yes? So
or because you're not complying.
Exactly. They can force you out. Yeah. And we'll talk about bullying because again the definition that our laws have given on sexual harassment is what word did you use? Like the proof, the burden of proof is on the person, is so much on the person who's complaining, on the victim. And apart from that, most of the time it doesn't go all that way till penetration, as we had spoken about it, a sexual act. Some of them they will want to harass you, but when they see that you are not going to comply, they begin bullying you. So now we've now termed the policies that we are going to campaign, that we've been campaigning door to door. We've termed them as sexual harassment and anti-bullying policies. How to deal with the two that go hand in hand.
Right. Sophia, how come the Me Too movement, and I asked you this before, the Me Too movement in the West has been amazing.
Right.
I mean, big men have fallen. Yeah. Big men have fallen in the West. People who are untouchable have come down. They are actually, there are people in jail. How come in Africa we still are so far behind? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with our story?
I would say, at least in our Kenyan context, there have been real consequences to women coming forward. As we've talked about today, it's a real struggle. If you've gone through this, you know that it's not easy to even talk about it with your partner, with your friend, let alone coming out publicly to admit that this horrible thing I have been through. So there's a lot of stigma around it. But when you do find women with the courage to come forward, there have been instances of retaliation, and where the law is even used as a tool to punish women who've actually come forward. So unlike the Me Too movement where we celebrated, even our own Lupita Nyong'o was one of the people who came forward, and we celebrated these women. We celebrated their courage. We encouraged other women to follow suit. Here in Kenya, it's a situation of censorship. You will be censored. Many women who've come forward to say that they've been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted by somebody have been sued for defamation. And have been slapped with damages of millions of shillings. So you can imagine, if you're a victim of sexual violence and you come forward and then you're slapped with a million shilling damages, a million shillings in damages, of course that will be a cue to anybody else. Like, unless you have 2 million shillings in the bank, unless you have 10 million shillings in the bank, do not come forward. So we see censorship laws being used against women who actually want to come forward. And this is something that we really have to introspect as a country. What kind of country do we actually want to be? Are we so adamant about protecting perpetrators to the extent that we will violate the rights of victims even further by censoring them and making sure that they don't come forward, that they remain silent, that they die with their silence? Because it's not like sexual harassment is not happening. It's because the people who are perpetrating it are powerful, and they will use that power. They will use all of that power to ensure that they are not being held to account.
Sometimes when we hear of sexual harassment, especially in the workplace, we hear of it as sort of a by the way, or somebody was paid a little money and sent out, or, you know, what happens emotionally? Because I know we talk a lot about the law, about job loss. Emotionally, what happens to you when this kind of, like you, Sofia, it's happened to you so many times repeatedly.
Right.
What happens to you emotionally as a woman?
I mean, to be honest, I'm affected emotionally because of many things, right? So, for instance, I've actually even recently, in the last couple of months, made a complaint to my clients. So my clients are an NGO, and one of their staff members sexually harassed me in the context of work. And I made a complaint to them. And the executive director of this organization decided to remove the HR and the deputy executive director from the process. So it was only him making the decision. The person who had sexually harassed me was a woman, she was a female lawyer, or rather it is a female lawyer. And the issue of believability, they sent an investigator to investigate the sexual harassment, and the investigator couldn't even fathom. It was unbelievable, just like, wait, a woman sexually harassed you? And I'm just like, yes, this actually happened to me. And the complaint ended up being dismissed for lack of evidence. As we talked about, the issue of evidence is a real thing. And I say, what evidence do you need? You have my testimony. I'm telling you that this happened to me. So when it's dismissed, it completely destroys somebody emotionally, because you have gone on this path trying to seek justice and accountability, and then you're not believed or you're dismissed. So it really takes a toll on you emotionally. In fact, if there's any advice I would give any woman who's undergone sexual harassment or undergone sexual violence, is that you need mental health support. You need therapy. You need a counselor, because every time you walk on the journey of accountability, you will be faced with people who will doubt you, who will slut shame you, who will blame you. It will be a trigger every time you have to talk about it. So you really have to have a sense of self-care, even as you're making this complaint, because emotionally it will be draining. Now, that is an institution. If we talk about the police, this is a whole other ball game. It is not easy to make a complaint to the police about anything, now let alone sexual violence. So that journey of having to complain, of going through the court system, and you know our court system has a lot of delays, your matter will be adjourned. So you're in court for years trying to seek accountability, and that drains you emotionally. You are seeing your colleagues who've decided to give in, move up in their careers. Meanwhile, you're lagging behind, because you've stuck on this principle, on your worth, on your sense of self-dignity, that I will not give in to this kind of sexual behavior. And the result of that might be that your career takes a slump.
Yeah.
So there are real consequences to doing the right thing. And I wouldn't want to not be honest with women out there that accountability is a very, very, very tumultuous journey to go on. And once you're on that journey, you have to stick through it. And you have to always remember that you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for other women, you're doing it for other girls, because the moment we do not speak about sexual harassment, the moment we do not speak about sexual violence, we are effectively condoning the practice. Yeah. You might as well call yourself a perpetrator, because you are complacent. You are complacent. If women who are before us, who have been in the profession for 20 years, for 15 years, know these predators and have not said anything, then that means that they are part and parcel of the system that is created to protect perpetrators and to essentially ensure that victims never get redress.
Judy, she said something that I let slide. She was sexually harassed by a woman. So this disease has now spread, isn't it? Because I understand where the woman would be coming from.
Yes.
I had to do the following things to get to where I am. So now that I'm here, I continue with the practice of abuse. I was abused. Many people who are abused become abusers. So are you beginning to hear stories of women who are abusing men and abusing women?
Oh yes,
Oh,
we've
yes.
had in several stories, even while working
Even
with Sofia,
men, yeah.
men complaining that, this happened to me when I was with a certain lady, and I could not come out because I'm a man. How am I being sexually harassed by a woman? Yet they are there, and now for them they're even favored by the whole issue of believability more.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the issue of believability
And there's
is
also
even
the
more.
male ego as well,
Yes.
the toxic masculinity, whereby the men will swallow their pride. You will go with your female mentor somewhere, and she will make a move on you. You understand? She'll make a move on you, but you can't come down and tell your boys that such and such a thing happened. In fact, they'll high five you. They'll be like, "Hey, boss,
Hey, boss, yeah, you're in.
So I feel like they are also having their demons, and that's why we have said that it's not a feminist issue anymore.
Yes.
It's not a woman issue anymore. It's happening now, and it's happening unregulated.
Yes.
There is nowhere you can turn to and get easy justice. Let's put it at easy justice. There can be justices, but by the time by the time you're actually getting your justice or whatever fraction of justice that you're looking for, the effects will have been like too much. It's too much to handle.
Sophie, there's probably a lady out there who's put up with a lot, and watching this show, she's decided she's coming out. What can she do? And I know, don't be jaded. Be hopeful. Be hopeful. What can she do?
It's so interesting because of my very recent and it's a very present continuous situation that I'm in, where as a lawyer, I don't know how to be a victim. And when it has happened to me and I'm actually taking this journey, I'm just like, oh wow.
I know.
I thought I knew what needs to be done. Because if you bring me a victim of sexual violence right now, I'm on it. Like, we will walk the journey, I will do the thing. But when it came to me, I was stuck. I actually didn't know what to do. And it actually was more disheartening because I should know better. I am the person who's the activist, as Judy calls me.
You are the go-to activist.
I am the go-to activist. I am the person who's on the grind. I'm the person who's done women's rights work. I'm the person who fights for women on a daily basis. I know what needs to be done. But when it came to me, it was a surreal experience. Because the truth is, the first thing I would advise is that you have to evaluate your situation. Sometimes we have to be pragmatic about these situations. You have to weigh, what does the process look like? Do I have the energy, the bandwidth to walk the journey? And that's why I will emphasize again mental health support, so that you can be able to get advice and map out the different channels that are available to you within the legal system. Sometimes it might be better to make a report to your employer, depending on the situation. If, as Judy alluded, if there's a policy framework within the organization, it's always better to explore that policy framework first. But sometimes you'll see that the perpetrators are the people in power, even in that organization. So then it becomes difficult to seek accountability through that platform. Within the Law Society of Kenya, we have just come up with a new policy, an anti-sexual harassment and anti-bullying policy, that allows the opportunity for somebody to go straight to the Law Society if you feel that within your law firm there is no possibility of redress. But say you're not a lawyer, right, and your employer has sexually harassed you, what do you do, Judy?
Yeah, she's the one in the trade. I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
You're the one in the trade union movement.
Union movement.
So tell us,
Yes.
What do we do if my boss is my boss is actually the HR, and
Right.
they're drinking buddies with the CEO.
Yes.
And the
'Cause
CEO,
that's what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They drink together, they play golf together, and they'll, if I lodge a complaint to the CEO, they'll probably go and have a drink together and laugh about it.
Absolutely.
Have a good laugh, and I'll be fired. What can I do?
So now what we have seen is, we have seen various judges, yeah, at least the progressive judges coming down and saying, you know what, I have understood your case. Yes, I have seen you've been unlawfully terminated. Most of them emerge from unlawful termination on account of sexual harassment. Progressive judges have come up, and they're like, what she underwent is sexual harassment. And what the courts do, they interpret it as a form of discrimination. So it's your constitutional rights that have actually been violated. Because if you look at our laws, let me now describe to you how our laws look like. We have the Sexual Offences Act.
The
Now,
Njau Kindongo
the
one.
Njau Kindongo one. You remember there was the issue of sexual harassment and marital rape that were described as just trivial issues that the Sexual Offences Act can do without, yeah? But we thank God that it was defined. Though it was defined in the Sexual Harassment Act, it named a likely perpetrator as somebody in power, in public office, and somebody with authority over you.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't meet the two thresholds,
yes.
the two definitions,
So
then you're
Yes.
not a likely perpetrator
Absolutely.
as per the
And
Sexual
also,
Offences
and also
Act.
the Sexual Offences Act has the issue
Yes.
about persistent.
Yeah.
Like,
Now,
it's not
I was
just
going to
once, it
that.
has
I was
to
going to
happen.
that. Now, the number one is now the definition of a likely perpetrator. Then number two, if you are sexually harassed once according to the Sexual Offences Act, then that is not sexual
So
harassment.
like you, that would not have
That
been
is
said.
not.
That is
no,
not sexual
it has to
No.
be persistent. Like, but
It
they
has
don't.
to be persistent.
There's persistent thrown in there. So somebody in a public office or with authority over you persistently, yes, making unwanted sexual advances. Yes.
Yeah.
So once is not enough.
Once
twice
is not
enough,
enough.
it
Twice
has
is
to
not
be
enough. It has to
persistent.
be persistent.
And
Yeah.
so you
For
have
it to
prove
become a
Yes.
problem, it
Yes.
has to be persistent.
So now we've looked at the likely perpetrator and how many times you need to be harassed for it to be sexual harassment as per the SOA. Then now we look at there also has to be consequences to the sexual harassment for
Yes,
it to
to
be seen
amount to
as to
sexual
amount to
harassment.
sexual
So
harassment.
there must be consequences.
Consequences like
you
maybe
lose
there was
your
a threat
job
or loss of job. You understand? Maybe loss. Maybe you are denied a public service. You understand? There has to be some denial somewhere. There's some loss you must have incurred.
So like you now,
Nothing.
your
There's-
story doesn't even.
It's incomplete.
It doesn't even
I should
whatever
have
the
gone
threshold.
back to
You
work.
needed to go back
to work, and then
and for it to be persistent.
and then for him to sexually harass me more.
Yeah.
And then finally he refuses to give me that
Of course,
job.
he needed to refuse
Yes.
to give you the job.
But you
Yes,
have to wait
exactly.
all these months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to wait for it to amount to that for
Yeah.
you to go to the police station. And
Oh,
actually,
you have to go and report it to the police
Oh,
station.
yes. It's a
Yes,
crime.
you have
Oh,
to report
my
it.
word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who will probably have a good laugh at you.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know now then they're over there, you go to Central
Hata
Police
madam
Station.
tunakatiwa tu. Sisi
Eh,
tunakatiwa
so
nakatiwa.
kubali.
Upatiwe
Eh.
promotion.
Now you see, we're even laughing about it, and it's so sad.
I
you
know.
know.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
ridiculous,
So now
yeah.
that's the criminal part. You understand? Now that's what criminal law sees sexual harassment as. Like you have to have met all those.
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's one section maybe you can try and use, which is an indecent act with an adult.
Yes.
So the law essentially provides that if you touch somebody in the
Like he
private
was
parts-
driving and put
Yes.
his
No,
hand
but
on
that's
her
not
husband.
sexual
But that is,
harassment.
I
But,
know, but
exactly.
it's an indecent act.
No,
Yes.
so that's what I'm saying. Like the law is so flawed
Yeah.
that there are pieces here, pieces here, pieces there. But even that section only applies to your breasts,
Your breast, yeah,
your
this
buttocks,
is not.
and your vagina.
Yeah.
They're
So your back,
been
your
different.
neck,
your
your thighs.
have not
Yeah.
been included as body parts where
That are
somebody
capable of
that
being
are capable
sexually-
of being sexually assaulted.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the law.
That's the law as
So
per,
it's if,
yes.
if it's your breasts, your buttocks, and your vagina,
Fine.
good. If it's your neck, your thighs,
Or
your stomach,
anywhere,
your
even though he
back,
comes and licks your face.
if he licks your face,
there's nothing you can do.
So as far as this story is concerned, and from your experience,
Yeah.
nothing happened to you.
So for
Just-
me,
Yes,
according to the
law.
law,
According to the law,
according to the law,
nothing happened. The man was
According
just
to the
being,
Sexual
to the
Offences
he was
Sexual
Act.
being
Offences
kind
Act.
to you.
according
Yeah.
to the Sexual Offences Act, he was just touching me.
The prequel.
Yes. So yes.
Okay. So,
So-
law ladies,
Yes.
I think it's time we went back to amend the law. I put it to you lawyers, it's time we went back to see that the law is amended. And because I'm being told that we're about to come to the end of the show, I wanted to ask, how can we amend this law? I know it's a big one and you're not ready for it, but is it something we can consider? Because the truth is, the law must be amended. I think Joaquin Dongo took us this far, but I think a new group of ladies needs to wake up and take the law further on behalf of your fellow sisters. So I ask you, you cannot say, I think, first of all, you have to amend the law so that it becomes so punitive for anybody to sexually harass another person in the workplace. So far, I think we don't even have a wrist. We don't have a slap on the wrist. We have nothing. We have established.
Okay, what we have is the Employment Act also tries. It does try. So it states a likely perpetrator, at least extending it to be
anybody
anybody in the workplace, yes. But it fails us again by saying it's only an employee who can be a victim to the sexual harassment in the workplace. It does not look at the interns and
You see,
the
like
visitors
her,
to the law firm.
she was assaulted by, she was sexually
Yes.
harassed by a client.
Yes.
So that
No,
doesn't
you see,
count.
doesn't
Yeah.
count.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, yes, now when we go back to the drawing board, we have to revisit the issue of who the likely perpetrators are, who the likely victims are.
Yes.
We need to look at the threshold that they are putting the victims to have to acquire to be able to have a valid complaint on sexual harassment.
Right.
Then we also have to okay, it is time we got a special victims unit. Yes,
We've
a
been
court,
talking about
a
this for
special
so
court
long.
that will handle SGBV, the
Sexual
sexual and
offenses,
gender based violence, including sexual harassment. And then we also need a special court, a special police unit that will be able to investigate and take the reports, to be able to document it. Because as it stands right now, like all police officers have a gender desk.
Not all, but some.
Okay, most. Let's say most. Let's give them the props. But who mans that gender desk?
A man. Or
It's not
rarely,
really-
I've seen some
no,
gender desks that are
You will
actually
find
unmanned.
no.
They-
You will find
Yeah,
it's the
some
same
of them are
person.
unmanned, some of
No, you
them
will find
are-
it's the same person who's recording in the OB who
Yes.
just switches desks and goes to the
Gender
other
desk.
side. But at the same time, you should be able to ask: Are you willing to give this report to either a male officer or a female officer? Let that person be assigned to. Let that have the discretion to choose whether you are comfortable with a male or a female. After that, let them give sexual violence, sexual and gender-based violence, the attention that it needs. We have seen that SGBV victims, now they're violent crimes, yes? Those ones for people being hacked to death, people being done for ABCD. But we all believe that there was an escalation before it reached there. Yes. So now, to curb the vice, as you said, we need to go back to the drawing boards. And as women, we need that meeting.
Yes.
Yes, as women, we need that meeting to sit down and speak with one voice. Because you can't come to me and tell me that I was sexually harassed by somebody, and I'm the first person as a woman not to believe you.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah, we need that meeting as women.
Okay. Imagine we've run out of time. The director is, flagging me down. So this discussion, I hope we can have it another day and continue. But I leave you with this thought: we must amend the law. So if you're a lawyer out there, you're a dada out there, you are a policy maker, you sit somewhere in parliament, we are asking you to join these two young ladies, because we have to amend the law on sexual harassment in the workplace. Have a great week. Baraka.